Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Kat LaCohie, but she has a special identity as well, which we are going to talk about today. As many of you know, I added the K to my name, and I'm really particular about using the K in my name because Sarah Ramsey put up with a lot of things she should not have. But Sarah K. Ramsey knows better. She does better and she acts better. And so Kat and I were on a panel together and connected on this idea. How are you, Kat?
I'm great. I'm currently in LA and it's raining outside and I love it because I'm originally from England. And I'm just like, this morning I was snuggling in my bed, like, the rain outside. It's so comforting.
It's raining here as well. And my husband's out golfing, so I bet he's going to be
Oh my
home
God.
really soon.
Don't bring those muddy shoes in my house.
I know. Okay, so Kat, you have kind of a dual identity as well. Can you tell people a bit about that?
Absolutely. So I perform as a variety burlesque performer as Vixen DeVille. And I grew up, I wanted to be an actor from the age of 10. So I trained in acting. I went to youth theaters. And then I went and got a degree in performance and theater creation. And so when I graduated, I had heard about this thing called burlesque, and I didn't really know what it was. And I was really drawn to it. And I was terrified about it for so many reasons and avoided it. And that's a whole other conversation. But when I got into the world of burlesque, I really approached it. Some people come in from costuming, some people come in from a dance background. I came in from an acting background. And so they're like, oh, when you perform, you need to have your performance name. And I approached it as an acting exercise from the acting world, where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to play this character and I'm going to create a whole backstory and create a name that really expresses who they are. And rather than just pick a name out of the air that just was like, oh, that'll be fun for like 3 weeks. Cause I was like, I think I kind of want to do this for a longer time. And I really wanted to like be able to promote like, oh, I'm playing the role of Vixen DeVille. So I spent a long, long time thinking about the backstory, thinking about the characteristics and the essences of this character, and then giving her a really fabulous name that I loved saying out loud. And then I, later on, when I moved out to LA, I was working with a branding coach, and they were looking at everything about moving to LA as an actor. So where are you going to live? Where do you want to train? Where is your representation going to come from? And then they looked at your resume and they looked at how you present your resume. Is your headshot representative of your brand? What about your name? And I was like, well, that's my name. And they're like, well, do you like it? Is that your brand? And I was like, oh, because of course, as an actor, you are the CEO of a company. And as anything, where the first thing you see on Facebook is your full name and your headshot and your picture. And that is the first thing we see of each other on social media. And I had never really thought, wow. And she said, you've given so much consideration to this character that you embody on stage. Yet you're walking around running a company as an actor with a name that's just been thrust upon you. And I thought that was such an interesting way of looking at it. And then I did rebrand my own name at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with the naming thing.
I love it. I talk all the time about personal brand, and I love that you called yourself the CEO of your own company. And what I say, we are all the CEO of our own life.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we're making
And
our own decisions, and you talk about the CEO of the company and making sales. As a CEO of your life, you're selling you in terms of friendships, partnerships, relationships, or hey, I've got this crazy idea, come on board with me. You're constantly selling every day. Even when you say to your friends, hey, do you want to come out for some drinks tonight? You're selling them on the idea that they should spend some time with you. So, being the face of your brand in your life is absolutely.
well, and being toxic person proof is also about that personal brand of teaching people how to treat you. And I know you have a history of toxic relationships as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and what happened was I was in there's not that many, but there's at least three. And the main one that sort of I remember because it really changed my life when I got out of it. I was in that just as I was finding burlesque. And it really, if I hadn't found burlesque at that time, I really don't think I'd have got the guts to leave it. I don't think I would have been the person I am now. And I say about creating Vixen DeVille and creating a character, that was the sort of naive person at the time that I was thinking that way, because as I teach it now and I work with my clients, my students, is that I'm not creating a character, I'm excavating who I really am, because we do put up these barriers and this version of ourselves to behave in society. If you're in a toxic relationship, your partner will say, I think you should wear a bit more makeup. Maybe you shouldn't wear any makeup. Oh, you should wear short skirts more often. Or, I hate when you go out and you wear short skirts. You shouldn't be showing yourself off to everybody but me. And you get a lot of, you're not good enough. You need to change. You need to morph. You need to become something else. And whether that's from a partner that you're living with, whether that's from your parents or the group of friends that you're around, toxic relationships doesn't have to just be your romantic relationships. It's your working relationships. It's your family relationships. So in those relationships, if you're constantly being told, oh, the job that you do isn't worth it. Oh, you're an artist. That's a bit, when you're going to get a proper job, or, oh, you want to move away from town. Oh, what's that? Oh, when you're going to have kids, or why do you have so many kids? Whatever it is that people like to criticize us about. We hear it so much that we start to think that's how I should be. And so when I created or excavated Vixen DeVille, it was, who am I if I didn't grow up with the like being bullied at school and being told that I wasn't correct and acceptable, and then being in a relationship where I wasn't correct and acceptable, and if I was fully myself, who do I wish I could present to the world? And it was a very confident person who didn't care what other people thought, who could say almost kind of like bitchy, conniving little things and not really care. Almost like a Devil Wears Prada character, Cruella DeVille character, Emma Thompson, the new Cruella DeVille film. And we love those evil Disney villains because they are just saying what's on their mind and they don't care what people think. So I really created this person that, like I said, was the inner me without all the filters of I've got to hide behind myself to survive in society. So it's such a beautiful exercise in stripping away all of the bullshit, all of the facade, and getting to the absolute essence. I call it like the filtered, distilled version of me. And it is a heightened character. It is almost a cartoon character. And then there's sort of different, it's like saying there's the vodka that is Vixen DeVille. And then when I go and see my parents, it's vodka and Coke. When I go and see my friends, it's vodka and so, but it's always rooted in that distilled version that is me. And so it was then I realized, having performed as Vixen and embodied Vixen on the stage, that became this playground where I could try out being this character without suddenly not waking up one day and going, you know what, I'm going to dye my hair blonde and I'm going to start wearing different clothing, or I'm going to cut my hair super short and start wearing business suits. And all your friends and family are like, what happened to you? What's this sudden change, And then you go, oh, maybe I shouldn't change myself. Whereas when you do it gradually in this burlesque world where you're finding this character and you're exploring this character and trying out with a group of supportive people, I was really able to find out, oh, I kind of like this sort of clothing. And I really like saying these sorts of things. I have these opinions. And then it would just become a habit. It wasn't like I was trying in my real life to be different and live differently. I couldn't keep it in because I was so used to practicing being the real me on the stage.
And I was thinking practicing. I'm so glad, like intuitively you picked up. I was like screaming the words practice.
Yeah,
because
you.
I hear all the time people saying, oh, but that's not who I am. I'm not this, I'm not that. And I said, okay, I was born musical. I was personally born musical, but I practiced piano.
Yeah.
So now you consider me a musician.
Right.
If you heard me play the cello, you would not think I was musical or a musician, right? Because I've not practiced the cello.
Yeah.
And I think when we think about change in terms of practice, it's so much nicer to ourselves and more realistic. And it's like, okay, I've not practiced speaking up in crowds. I've not practiced standing up for myself. I've not practiced having boundaries. I've not practiced, rather than I'm not good at that.
Yeah. And I've not explored it. And you also really don't know where those beliefs have come from. Because what if I grew up super musical, like I had an aptitude for it, but my parents couldn't afford a violin or something.
Mhm.
So I go up and go, oh, I really want to get a violin. Oh, you're not musical. You're tone deaf. Why would you want a violin for that? And parents will come out with a lot of rubbish just because they don't want to deal with the consequences. Like, oh, I want to go out. I want to go climb that big tree. Oh, no, you're not good with heights. Like, they'll tell you this stuff just to stop you from getting into trouble and stop getting them into trouble as well. And I just think it's so. I remember that I went through some of my schoolwork from like 5 or 6 years old, and there's a thing I filled in the blanks that said my hair is brown, my eyes are hazel, my height is whatever. And I looked at it, I was like, my eyes aren't hazel, my eyes are blue. And I remember very, very clearly lining up to see the teacher and saying, what color are my eyes? And she went, hazel. And I wrote it down. And I'm like, well, there's a fact I was told that is factually incorrect. There's proof that I was lied to and then believed it. And we're told so much about who we are and what we do. And, oh, you're not a good singer, or you're not very funny, are you? And it's just, oh, according to who? According to your standard, or according to your sense of humor, according to your idea of what taste is, just down to the fact that you could be with a bunch of people who really value labels in clothing, and I'll go to Goodwill and be like, oh, I love that dress. Yeah, I got it from Goodwill. Oh my God, we really need to get, when people say we really need to get you driving a better car. We really need to get you a proper job. Oh, we really need to get you we really need to get you a boyfriend, don't we? We don't need to do anything. Have you ever heard people?
We really need to control your life if you don't mind.
We really need to make you fit into the box that makes you acceptable in my life. Like, oh, I really hate when people say, we need to get, no, we don't need to do a thing. Yeah. So having Vixen DeVille, it just, the renaming is so much. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go with this, but the renaming is that as soon as people hear Vixen DeVille, they hear exactly the idea of what I want you to think Vixen DeVille is. You hear this vixeny, tricksy, sly, mischievous. You hear DeVille, you think devil, Cruella DeVille. You think supernatural, powerful, all these things, and it instantly get who she is. Whereas when I said Katherine Nichols, because that's my original name, Katherine, like English Rose, some people would get.
Right, yeah.
And it's funny, I knew this actress, maybe she doesn't know this story, but it stuck with me, that she had been called Sarah Morgenstern, which is a German name. And she was beautiful, like really sunny, cheerful. She had this beautiful blonde hair. She walked into a room and just lit it up. But you see written down Sarah Morgenstern, and you're like, very stern, very German.
Yes.
And so she looked it up and found out it was Morningstar. So she called herself Sarah Morningstar. And so she walks in rooms, I'm Sarah Morningstar. And it was just like, what a minor change, but makes such a difference, because it is that first, it's preliminary to first impressions. So yeah, that it just found it was very interesting in that world. And then
I have one of my coaches, his name was Will Hyde. His last name was Will Hyde. So he changed it to Wild.
Oh, nice.
And look at the difference in Will Hyde and Wild.
Yeah. It's just that instant when you hear it, because we all make assumptions without even trying. It's in our nature. Like, we're trying to figure out if someone's going to kill us or not. So we start making jujudgments on them as soon as we
Especially my audience. No, that's fine. Yeah.
Does this person need to be killed? Yeah, but it's also the learned triggers of it. So when I was 5, for some reason, I wanted to call myself Kathy. I have no idea why. I think there was like 2 or 3 Catherines in the class, and one was spelled with a K, one was spelled with R-I-N or R-Y-N. And I just got it in my head. I just remember, I was like, I want to be called Kathy. And I can hear the taunts of Kathy Eccles. Oh, Kathy Eccles. Oh, Kathy Eccles. And I just hated that name for so long. And then I remember walking into this waiting room for a rehearsal, and there was a guy with a guitar, and he's like, what's your name? I was like, what? He goes, oh, I just like to play songs like to the beat of someone's name. I was like, oh, it's Kathy Eccles. He goes, oh, that's a beautiful name. And he started singing this like song, ooh, Kathy Eccles. And I just thought, I hated it. Like, nice song, but I hate hearing that name. And so when I was becoming an actor and I looked at it written down, I didn't like how curly Kathy Eccles, it looked so childish. I could see my childhood name written in it. I could hear the taunts of it. Okay. So I was like, okay, Katherine Eccles, because that's more like an adult and it rolls off the tongue, Katherine Eccles. But I still didn't like saying it. I sort of felt like it sounded like Nickel. Like I would say it very quietly. Hi, I'm Katherine Nichols. And they could never hear my name. And I didn't go in the room where I'm trying to like sell myself. But like, hey, I'm Katherine Eccles, and have a beat in between. And I never said it confidently. And also my mom was like, oh, I've never liked the name Eccles. It sounds like a hiccup, like Eccles, you know. And
Things
also,
I wouldn't have thought, but as you point them out, I'm like, well, yes.
they always did. And there's nothing wrong with the name at all, but it's also not the name I chose myself. It's a name that came from my dad's side of the family. He died when I was very young. I barely really knew him and his side. Well, I knew his side of the family, but the family name of Eccles, it's not like I grew up in that area and it's a tradition that I want to carry on. And they didn't look at me and go, oh, Catherine is Catherine the Great, and she looks great. So it just was like, oh, it sounds good, you know. I think if we named things like, you named the orange because it's orange, right? Like its name comes from what it actually is inside you. So if someone's giving you a name just because they like it as a parent, just they like the sound of it, or they hope you become like that, the sound of the name, like I'll call you Victor because I want you to be victorious or whatever it is. It's a lot of somebody else in your life, you know. It's a lot of someone else putting things on you, and to walk around with the thing that you are, the name of you that somebody else gave you. And maybe you don't get on with your parents, maybe you don't even know your parents, maybe you actually hate your parents. So to be walking around with a label that somebody else gave you, it's really, it affects so much of your life. So when I was about 15 or 16, I was looking at getting my actor's name in England. Over here it's SAG, over there it's British Equity. And my mom had said something about her mother's maiden name was LaCohie, and there was this whole history about the name of LaCohie, and there was some buried treasure linked to the name, and it just sounded right. It just sounded so mystical and mysterious, and it never got carried on because she never had kids. And there was 4 or 5 different ways of spelling it. And at that time, I just had seen the film Casper, where she's called Kat, and I thought, oh, it'd be so nice if my name was Kat, because that's so more cool than Kathy. And then Kat LaCohie sounds really cool. But who am I to have a cool name? And if I go into school tomorrow and go, my name's Kat, people will be like, oh, I'm not calling you Kat. And I just didn't do it. I was so het up with what other people would think about, oh, you're changing your name, you think you're so important, or whatever bullshit you think people are thinking. And so I used it for my email. And when Hotmail became a thing and email became, because I'm that old, my email was LaCohie@hotmail.com. So for the longest time, I was LaCohie@hotmail.com. But I was still Kathy Eccles, or Catherine. I think I got into Catherine at that point. And I had the luck to be able to, or the opportunity to be able to move out of town. And I moved from Newcastle to London. I moved from London to LA. So being able to reinvent yourself, because it's so difficult in your hometown around your family to say,
Yes.
my new name is this, right? Because they know you as the old one. There's still some people in the world who call me Kathy, and I let them go because, you know, they are a real close friend of mine.
I want to zero in on that just a little bit more and say it is really difficult because people see you in this box, or they want to fit you in this box. And so some of my ladies, they get so frustrated when they're trying to change or have a new identity. And 2 things I want to say is, I give people advice to say, I don't let people treat me like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like adding that anymore to that conversation, or, you know, people don't call me Kathy anymore, you know, that kind of phrasing. Because if you say, well, that's not my name, or that's not what I do, people are like, but it is what you do, because I've known you for, you know, 20 years, you know, but adding that anymore. And then I want to say, whatever your religious beliefs are, as you listen to this, there's a verse in the Bible about Jesus not being accepted in his hometown. So if Jesus wasn't accepted in his hometown, you cannot be so perfect that you are accepted in yours sometimes. And that's okay.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Because the hometown's just the place you happen to be born. Like, that's all it is. And
we won't tell Adele.
What's that?
We won't tell Adele. She met in my hometown.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm just going to rewrite the lyrics to your song. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that I had the opportunity to be a different person in different areas. Even when I said I got into acting when I was sort of 10, I looked up an acting group for kids because I was like, I want to be an actor. And so I was at school as Kathy Eccles, the sort of a little bit sad, sort of a little bit overweight, very academic, geeky, not very sporty. You don't want to have her on your sporting team, you know. But then I went to a different town, like literally 10 minutes drive, but a different town to go to this youth theater. And I was like, fun, popular, like Kathy Eccles. Oh, she's super fun. And, you know, because I was able to go in that, and they didn't know any of my 7 or 8, 10 years of being in that school. And if you are in your hometown, you stay in you in the same school, you go to the same high school, you're still with the same friends that you went to high school with, you're still in the same job that you're in, you're never meeting any new people, and you're just living in a repetition of what you've learned and what you've lived and the choices that you've made without exploring what else is there. So just that tiny change at the age of 10 of being able to have some time away from the norm where I could be a different, because nobody knew, and it was fabulous. And then being able to move to London, that's when people started calling me Kat, and I didn't even instigate it. It's just, I guess, sort of the London. It was like, oh, it was just shorter to say, so let's start calling you Kat. And so that it was great because people were calling it to me instead of me choosing to be called that. And then when I moved to LA and I did this whole new branding thing, I was like, right, I'm sick of caring what people think. And a part of it was, when I become famous, I want the people who hated me to know that Katherine Nichols became famous. And I was like, they're not going to care. They don't know. You're not that important in their life. They've forgotten who you are already. So do the thing for you. And so what I started doing was I'd sign into my yoga class as Kat LaCohie. And I felt like this secret agent lying to everybody. But I just, I've got to practice like saying that's my name.
But, yeah, and it's every time. I mean, even if I'm writing on my kids, you know, permission notes, I don't have to write Sarah K. Ramsey. I mean, obviously, like that's a little much, but it's like, it's for me, right? It's like, this is my name. This is who I am. This is authentically me. This is living my authentic life that I have chosen and built. Versus just hoping things all worked out, or, you know, whatever in that old life.
And what I found is, because I've not legally changed my name to Kat LaCohie, I've just, that's what it is. And I kind of like that too, because it did get to a point where I forgot my name was Katherine Nichols. Like I absolutely, someone said, oh, what's your legal name? I was like, oh gosh, I cannot remember. Because I was like, Kat LaCohie, they wrote me a check for Vixen DeVille. I was like, oh, no, it's not Vixen DeVille. They're like, oh, what is that? I was like, was not Kat LaCohie either. Wait, what is it? Like I couldn't remember what to sign this check to. And I had a shoulder surgery, I had a court case, and I had something else legally. Oh, I was taking somebody to court for an issue and something else. But I realized that Katherine Nichols had to be the adult that went through all the bad things. She had surgery. She had to go to the doctor. She had to pay her bills. She has to go to court. So it's like, it's kind of nice that Katherine Nichols gets to do all the really shitty stuff in my life. And then Kat LaCohie can just be like, oh, Katherine will do that for me because I'm so fun. So but
it is authentic, right? And that's what I want to point out, this whole piece. It is, we all have different roles we play. You know, I'm going to show up as a different person on this podcast than I am at my neighborhood dinner party or at my child's meeting. I mean, I feel very authentic too. It's not a complete personality change, but there are certain things that are appropriate to talk about here. If I started talking burlesque in the elementary school, that would be a little off, or at a funeral, or if someone's dying in the hospital and I'm like, let's talk burlesque, right? But here it's completely appropriate to talk to you and I in that fun piece. So if anybody's having like, what does that mean? Is that like a split personality? You know, I want you to recognize that you're already showing up different versions. If you're feeling sick that day, or feeling extra energetic, or feeling like doing yoga or going running, there's already different versions of you that show up to each of those life events.
There's you that wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, I'm super tired, I'm not going to put makeup on, and I'm going to wear my sweatpants. And you open the door and the mailman gives you mail and sees this person in sweatpants with no makeup on. And then there's a version of you that's getting up to go to a job interview, or going to work, and you're like, oh, I'm going to put my makeup on, I'm going to curl my hair, and, and the mailman, you open the door, and the mailman's like, oh, it's the same person, because it's still rooted in the same. It's like that thing. It's the vodka with Coke, vodka with orange, vodka with whatever. I like my drinks. So it's that you're always going to be rooted in you, and then it's a different taste of you. I might not talk about burlesque with kids, but I'll talk about confidence and owning who you are, and accessing and dance and movement. I'll talk to my aunt, who's a Methodist minister, and I'll talk to her about when I teach I say that my burlesque students, but my dance students, my burlesque students. And even she was like, oh, I see connections between when I talk to my congregation and when you talk to your students. And so I am able to, it's when you're in the position that I used to be in, when I thought, oh, this isn't appropriate, so I will shut down, or I'll deny.
Or this is who I have to be.
This is who I have
for other people right now.
Yeah.
Versus, the choice, the showing up as your own best brand.
Yeah.
In my own life, I had to rebrand myself a little bit. I get so excited about talking about this stuff that I actually had to learn to tone down, because I came across as inauthentic, because I was so excited and happy to be there that people thought like it came across as like too much. Like no one could be really that happy talking to me, or no one could care about me that much, or no one could like me that much. And it was fascinating. I was like, what? No, this is the authentic me. Like, I'm just super excited to be here. I'm super, and learning to I won't say tone it down. That's not, learning to choose the best version of me to show up to get the outcome I want, which is being connected, which is being a great listener, which is you knowing that I care about what you're saying and trying to wrap it up with a bow so our listeners can hear. That's very different than like, oh, I'm afraid of being something, I'm trying to change myself. It's being effective, right? Is that kind of just choosing effective. How to be most effective?
Yeah, because I was hosting this conference a couple of days ago, and I'm all about fun and play and excitement and whatever. But I can also be professional. So, and also, performing in burlesque shows, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of, oh, have the ticket sale? Oh, is the lighting broken? Oh, is the music playing? And so I can be like, hey, fun. Okay, welcome to the conference. Everyone got their videos on, and oh, it's so nice to see you. And then someone has like a breakthrough or something, and it's like, wow, I absolutely hear you. And I'm going to bring the tone down because you've just told me something really, heartfelt. And that's absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that. And okay, now we're going to go on to fun next. And I'm not going to just be for like, oh, that you had a breakthrough anyway. Like, of course, you're just right. Your authentic self. It's just having the filter. And that's why I love burlesque so much, because you can't get through life being 100% you 100% of the time, because you will just offend all the people and you will get arrested and fired. And I'm not advocating that at all. I'm just saying that if you're living 24 hours as this fake person, it's tiring, it's miserable, it doesn't do you any favors. So you need to make sure you have these places in your life, your best friends. You're like my mom, I'm 100% myself with my mom. Some people aren't. But if I didn't have my mom to be 100% with, I'd need someone else. Maybe it's your psychiatrist, but on the burlesque stage, I am unfiltered. I am saying whatever I want. I am doing acts that are maybe a little bit risque or a little bit almost offensive or too gory, especially at Halloween. Everything's super like, what? And it's for me, and the audience are going along with your ride. And so it's not like if I've been hired for a private gig, I'm there for your event, but on the burlesque stage in my show, this is what I'm presenting to you. And it's almost like going to the gym or going for a spa day. It's like a purge and a event, so that then it's not like I'm living the rest of my life kind of, oh, I never get to say the thing that's on my mind, or I never get to, it's so trapping, because you learn to bite your tongue and you learn to not say the thing. But if I was teaching kids all day, every day, and I'm biting my tongue and making sure I'm not swearing and making sure I'm, and then at the weekend I'm staying with my parents that I can't when do I ever, then you go crazy and you go out in the street and start swearing your head off because you just want to like have a vent. So that's why I think it's nice to be like, well, Kat LaCohie is dealing with the kids right now, and then Vixen DeVille goes on stage and is like, and just lets it all hang out, you know, and it's fully alive, being fully authentic. But I've had a couple of friends, I say friends, students, they're all my friends. I have a couple of students who they've renamed themselves in their real life. And I do have a Facebook group for people who not necessarily want to learn burlesque, but want to take the concepts behind it in their real life. So they're walking around their life like it's the burlesque stage. And a few of them have changed their name and they're like, oh, ha, ha. It's like I just put on a comfy pair of shoes and it's not awkward to say my name. It's not triggering anything in my brain. It's not getting all the negative connotations. Or if you've got a weird sounding name and people go, wait, how do I say that? It sounds like a rude word or something. Oh, they make fun of your name. And it's like, finally I'm me. Like I'm the me that I feel inside. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, so tell us about this Facebook group and tell people where they can find more about Kat and Vixen.
Yeah, so the Facebook group is called Revealing the Amazing You. I can either give you the link or I can type it in. I don't know what format we're in right
you
now.
can send it to me. We'll put it in the show notes. Yes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So it's called Revealing the Amazing You because that's what I feel burlesque did for me. It revealed the amazing part of me that's inside. I talk about it being like, I usually have one hanging around, but it's not on my desk. You know, you get those little geodes and it's a rock and on the outside it's brown and it's kind of dull. And
yes.
if you had it on the floor, you'd walk past it, you'd ignore it, you wouldn't pay attention to it. When you crack it open, inside is that glittery, sparkly, beautiful amethyst or whatever the gemstone is inside. And that's what you're showing to people on the burlesque stage. On the outer side is the hard shell you put on to survive in society against everything we have to go through every single day of our lives. But this is the part that we show our friends, our family, our nearest and dearest, our kids, our partners. And that's what we show on the burlesque stage. And that's why it's so beautiful as an audience member to see everybody just come to life. So revealing the amazing you and being used to that and feeling that cracking open, and that cracking open not being painful anymore, because sometimes it can be painful. So we like to celebrate everything about, it's not that you're on a burlesque journey, it's that you're on your journey of leaving a relationship, or you're on a journey of, you know, building a new business, you're on a journey of just discovering who you are. And I have little like exercises every day that you can do, sort of practice like, what's the thing that's amazing about you today? How are you going to reframe the terrible thing that happened to you this week and say why it was amazing and what you're going to do? How are you going to respond to that bad thing to make it be the story of, you know, 3 years ago, this terrible thing happened to me. If that hadn't happened, I would never have had my kid or whatever. Or I would never have moved town. I would never have bought my house. So it's just a nice little playground, like to practice. It's a practice place because everybody in there is so supportive and encouraging. So if you have naysayers in your life, or you don't feel comfortable doing it in your real life to reinvent yourself, come in that group and reinvent yourself in that group instead.
Yeah, and highly recommend doing that. I mean, even the conversations I have in my podcast are not conversations. I mean, I would love for these all to be my conversations in real life, but sometimes my neighbors want to talk about house projects, or, you know, friends that they want to talk about the ball team or whatever else, so it sometimes can be hard to find for anyone, even if you're a great conversationalist or very extroverted, to find like-minded people. And that is the beauty of the internet, and some of these that you can have those awesome conversations. So Kat and Vixen, thank you so much for helping us here on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Yay.